herpetology specialist.
Oh.
And before that, you were
Can
a.
you scooch it a little
Well,
bit?
so my career was as a psychological associate. So I worked in psychology through my career. Is that what you were
Yeah.
thinking about? Yeah.
So he likes working with kids.
Yeah. I do. I do, and I think that what you guys are doing, you know, the work that all of you do here and everything that you do, just connecting people with nature is really important. And you know, you may not feel like you're connecting people with nature as you're working in the wildscape, but just making this a place people want to come to, making making it inviting for other people to visit. It's important stuff. So I'm going to start passing this around. There's like 2 pages, and they're sort of alternating. So if you could grab one and pass it along, I would appreciate it. So Hester was asking me to talk about nature journaling today, and I'm happy to do that. I do a lot of that myself, and I'm wondering how many of you do some sort of nature journaling. Keep something like, all right, anybody else? A couple of you. So one of the pages that's going around is titled Nature Journaling for the Skeptic, and that's because we're out there doing stuff, right? And very often like to keep on the move, and who wants to stop and write or draw? And so there's the idea of what I put together there is like, well, if you're not sure you really want to do it, just give it a try, and give it a try on a really simple basis, and see if that's for you. The other page, and we'll talk about it, is about introducing maybe older kids to nature journaling. The idea being just to keep some sort of notes about what you experience out there. When I was a kid, I was tutored, I guess, at the museum in Fort Worth. I learned from biologists, and what I learned there was just biological field notes. So pretty short, just, Tarrant County, Texas, on October 4th at 2 p.m., Coluber constrictor flag of interest found at this particular location. That's kind of it, just like a listing, a scientific listing of what I saw. But in recent years, I've been more and more interested in nature journaling and spent more and more time doing it. And I want to show you an example, and I'll tell you that a lot of people do nature journaling primarily by drawing, which I think is wonderful. I don't do a great deal of that. I mean, I'm a writer, and so most of my nature journaling is writing. But I draw sometimes. Whether I do it well or not, doesn't matter. One of the things I encourage people about is, even if you're not sure that you could do it well, whether it's drawing or writing, give it a try, because nobody's been great yet. The point is have fun. And if you start doing some of it, you get better at it, and pretty soon it's like, yeah, that turned out pretty well. But anyway, this is something I wrote the other day at the Nature Center. It's kind of my most recent entry in my journal, and I was going to tell you a little bit about what's in it without going on and on too much. But I mentioned that it was October 2nd at Fort Worth Nature Center, that I was there at 3:15 on my own, sunny, clear, 91 degrees and that sort of stuff. I have a bench there that actually the opening of this last book talks about that bench, and it's like going home to me. So I went to that bench, and I was describing some of it, that it's the little blue stem is chest high in some places, head high in others, and this little opening of live oak and post oak, and a small sulfur butterfly moves above the grasses, and a paper wasp cruises near the bench. But I found this little purple aster, and some of you guys could probably tell me exactly what. Naturalist didn't narrow it down beyond it's an aster, so that's like narrows it down to about a jillion, right? But this little, humble little purple flower here, and it just really struck me. So what I wrote was, nestled down in the blue stem were a couple of beautiful small purple asters, beautifully symmetrical purple ray flowers around a yellow disc, with buds on the other thin green stems ready to flower soon. So many things pushed to the fore with an ostentatious show, and they could take a lesson in humility from these asters. I offered a little water to the asters and also to a prairie tea in front of me. And I talked about it being quiet. The blue stem and purple top are swaying in the light breezes. A butterfly or two brings some movement to this otherwise very still place. The stillness seems to embody contentment, the sense of not needing, not struggling. A butterfly lands in the live oak above me, and a green dragonfly slips in front and around me. So it's not stasis. The breeze moves and the insects fly, and yet there is peace and contentment that is only partly my own perception. So it's, you know, what I do in nature journaling is find what I find, and sometimes it's mainly just a description of, so here's what I found. But sometimes I'll go off into some other thing, like here, you know, thinking about some of our social and political world, about how some people push to the front with all their ostentation, you know, and that these little flowers could teach them something. So at any rate, clearly it's not just biological field notes. There's some sort of subjective and personal things in there as well. And sometimes that helps us sort of process, what did I get out of this? What does it mean to me? I didn't used to do that, but I think it's worth doing. That quality of self-reflection, some of you are probably great at it. Some of you, it may not be very familiar to that self-reflection. What does this mean to me? How am I feeling right now? And all of that. It's a worthwhile thing to do, and it's a worthwhile thing to get good at. Even if you keep it just in your own journal privately, just that capacity is a really important one. So that's one of the things that nature journaling can offer. But also nature journaling offers a kind of an improved ability to remember that day. So, and you know, this particular day wasn't that big a deal. It doesn't have to be, I took a once in a lifetime trip somewhere and I want to remember it. Although Lord knows I would want to journal about that. But it can be just like when you stop and you think about stuff, and maybe if you're drawing it, you're looking at it and draw a little, how exactly does that work, and you're studying it, and so you're learning a lot more about that plant, that spiny lizard, that mushroom, you know, than you might if you just sort of noticed it and passed by. Right? So in the process of stopping to think about it and all, you actually create stronger memories. Even if you lost your book and you never could look at it again, you'd remember that day better than if you hadn't done that. So stopping to really kind of dig into it a little bit is one of the values of nature journaling. And that's whether it's drawing or writing, you know, either one. So those kinds of things are worthwhile things that nature journaling can bring. And so for me, if I'm, let's say I'm in the big thicket, so I guess one reason I remember it is in that last book, I was concerned about how many places can we hit, you know, and Megan, the photographer, who's not the mindfulness person, is reminding me, Michael, you're not supposed to, like, how about just being in the moment, right? And not being too worried about how many places we can hit. And it's true, being present in the present moment, being still, and really kind of soaking it in, you get more from it than if you just keep on cruising and keep on looking for stuff. So it winds up being, for me, worthwhile to stop and do some writing, even if I might not walk quite as far because I stopped and wrote. Does that make sense? So, or, you know, you can get to where you can write standing up or sit on the ground or whatever. But Anyway, so that is the deal. On the back of the one that's nature journaling for skeptics, I have some prompts. A lot of people will provide prompts for nature journaling, and it looks like I'm a little ambivalent because it looks like, oh man, that's a big list. Like, whoa, you said just have fun, it's no big deal. And then you got this great big long list of stuff. But the idea is, those are a bunch of different things you might think about, but it's not like it's not like you write about or draw something about every single thing on that list. But it's just, well, there's some times and places that all that stuff about the sky and all might be what I really focus on. Like I'm out at sunset, and yes, the breeze feels cool, and look at what's happening with the clouds and all of that kind of stuff. Or maybe there's an oncoming rainstorm, and the sky is really kind of a major focus of what I want to write about, or I could draw about, or even paint about. Other times it might be the plants. It might be particular things I see, that Texas spiny lizard, and how it sat there and watched me very warily, and how close did it let me get, or if anything like that. So the list of prompts is a bunch of them, but it's just take what makes sense for that time and write about it. Does that make sense? How many of you think you might want to try nature journaling if you haven't? Like a number of you, yeah. Cool. By the way, I would say that, get something that doesn't intimidate you. Sometimes what people do is they'll get something really fancy, and it's like, oh, I'm not sure I want to write about it. What if I slip up, or what if I don't like what I wrote? I would encourage you to not write with the idea, well, if I don't like it, I'll rip off the page and throw it away. But get something that you say, you know what, if I cross some stuff out, if it's only a short entry, if I think, the first one kind of sucks, that's okay. Just move on from there and look at next time and go on. Yeah.
They now have an app, a journaling app for your phone.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that for a minute. So I actually use one of them. I know, right. Jim knows I'm just this old curmudgeonly paper and pencil, right?
They're staying in your brain.
I use Penzu sometimes. I'm not devoted to it, and I don't use Penzu for nature journaling because I want to do it on the spot. But I'm writing. I have the habit bad, man. I'm working on something that I hope would become another book, and I wanted to write about the options there for nature journaling and just observing and whatever. So I got to acknowledge that there are people out there, some of you young folks among us, that would say, paper's so 20th century, what about all of our other options? And really, some of them might be fine. Some people would want to use iNaturalist like it was a nature journal, which is fine. How many of you use iNaturalist? Me too, by the way. I think it's a horrible nature journal because it only has space to really journal on the desktop version, and the way it's organized by observation. So it's not like on this date, here's the walk I took and what that was like. It's just, okay, a sulfur, prairie tea. Anyway, the other possibility for those of you that really want to use a phone, and I respect that, would be the Microsoft app OneNote. Any of you familiar with OneNote? So OneNote is one of those organizational apps that you can take notes. You can also include photos. You can also even record audio and make that an attached file to what you write. And you can dictate into it. And that's the really good thing, because last thing I want to do is be standing in the field going, I embarrassed myself one time teaching about nature journaling, and I stopped to look at something, and I missed swallowtail going through. It's like, you're supposed to be focused on this stuff and not on your technology, right? But you can dictate, and what I mean is it will then transcribe it to text, and so that's not bad. So, you know, if you really wanted to use the technology, you could consider getting OneNote and using that. I am a fan of paper and pen, but you know. So one other disadvantage of something like just using your camera, and I'm watching Jim because, you know, your camera, and I take a lot of photos too, but Jim has taught people about, you know, using smartphone photography and doing it well, which is really cool. And photography is a great adjunct to have in the field, but you know, the thing is, it's only going to be a visual image, right? There's so much to your experience out here. If you are sitting somewhere, you know, you hear, wow, is that a Bewick's wren? You know, like, or the wind in these trees is so wonderful. That smell in autumn of decaying leaves and kind of new soil starting. There's a lot of smells and things to hear and all of that. Even taste, if you want to rob the local juniper and, you know, grab a couple of berries.
Persimmons, Texas persimmons.
But there's so much to experience that you can't record with a camera. That a camera is a good adjunct, and Lord knows I love them, but it's probably not the way to have to preserve your memory in the field.
Supplement your memory.
Yeah, exactly.
Words and pictures. I'm into words and pictures.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think that the act of writing also helps you remember and think differently.
Yeah. There's a little bit of research out there, and when I've looked at it, a lot of it has to do with college students taking notes in classes, and some of it doesn't translate too well with how well do you remember. But the thing I was saying earlier about how when you stop, when I'm thinking about that little asterisk and what does it mean to me, I've stopped and I'm writing stuff. So it means I'm thinking about it. I'm not moving on. I'm thinking about what is that? What did it look like? What do the ray flowers look like? Is the disc yellow, or is it kind of, you know, all that? So you are creating more memories partly because you've stopped, and maybe because you're writing on paper, because the act of writing may in fact, help with memories.
I remember a day when we were at the LBJ grasslands and we stopped to write.
Oh yeah.
And you fed us Texas persimmons that day.
Yeah.
That was a good day.
I did.
Sorry,
I did.
And I think I remember it so well because we stopped and wrote about it. Yeah.
Oh man, that's great, Dana. That's great. That was a really good trip. And I'll tell you guys, I'm not that much of a plant expert, and I am pretty careful, right? It's like, oh, eat this, and let's all get sick. But yeah, the persimmons were really great, and I love juniper berries. But anyway, and we wrote about that day. I think, well, because it was Kayla, right? And we encouraged people to write, like if you were going to write a letter to the grasslands, what did this mean to you? And it is that kind of notion. How many of you have read Robin Wall Kimmerer? Several of you have read the book, and that discussion that she pulls in, a lot of it is indigenous knowledge and indigenous wisdom, but what she pulls in about gratitude and all is really very important. So that would be the kind of thing that she might encourage, right? Write a letter or put your thoughts together to the grasslands about what did this mean today to you. And so anyway.
Would you, I apologize, would you mind repeating that name?
Robin Wall Kimmerer. So, and Kimmerer is the hard part, right? It's Kimmerer.
It's braiding
And
sweetgrass.
Braiding Sweetgrass is the book that most people know. It's the one that I've read a couple of times. I've also read the Gathering Moss book, which is quite good, and then this latest thing, which feels like almost like taking off from a little bit of Braiding Sweetgrass, is oh heck, old man brain. Somebody help me remember the title. Huh?
She's got it.
With the serviceberry?
Yeah,
Serviceberry?
the serviceberry, right? Yeah, and that one really narrows in on the idea of, you know, in our world we have economies based on want and based on trying to make you consume more, and in nature The economy is really based on reciprocity.
Yeah.
Everything provides for each other, and you don't, you don't keep wanting more than you. So yeah, that is so cool. So anyway, it's a little bit of a side trip, but any of you that you might be interested in Robin Wall Kimmerer, I'd highly recommend her. I would say, by all means, get her book before you get any of mine, if you think you might be interested in that at all. Okay, what about kids and journaling? Any of you got kids or teach kids, or would want to encourage kids to? Yeah. I remember you from the class, and you said you're. But remind me what ages you teach.
So I teach middle school and I teach art class.
Yeah. Okay.
We do.
So see, you're the guy that could say, okay, so if you don't want to write and you want to draw,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it really does help.
Yeah. I put together something so the second page of that thing, like nature journaling tells your story, something like that. What I had in mind is older or maybe middle school age, not, so not like a 7 or 8 year old, but, and the idea would be, kids, if you say, okay, we're gonna take our notebooks and we're gonna write today, and they very well might be saying, oh man. So, but on the other hand, if it's, well, we're gonna draw something and it won't take but a minute and whatever. So the idea, what I was thinking of is just have kids like jot down at the beginning, maybe like where they are, but write down one thing that you notice that you like, that's all. And then maybe at the end say something about, what'd you think about that, and make it really short and sweet at the beginning. I would say that with kids that are less inclined, or younger, it'd be even quicker than that. It would just be something about, let's we're going to stop and get a drink right now, and while we're doing it, draw something, or write down one thing that you saw that you liked, or something like that, just to sort of establish the idea that you could stop and think about your experience for a moment, and then move on. So that it's, because the last thing you do want to do is have those kids that are saying, oh no, another assignment, oh my. Anyway, so, and there's some prompts on the back of that. But again, if you were working with kids that were less into it or not as old, you could even shorten those. It's just really a couple of very quick prompts of, what did you notice today? What did you like? What was really cool? And just for them to write or draw for a moment. And I would encourage them to make, it's like, this is your story. This is the story of Eli, so that they bring it on the next time too, and add something else to it, so that if it becomes kind of chronologically, here's some of the places I've been, some of the stuff I thought was cool, and then at some point they might be interested in writing more about it and what did this mean to me. So that's a little bit of thought about dealing with kids. What are the questions or thoughts, or if you have any questions about any of this, or thoughts?
One idea of journaling, you could treat it almost like a farmer's almanac. And every year, do your own little charting of when you planted things, when they come up.
Yeah.
I have a relative in Texarkana that plants by the moon. Wow. She proved it to her family by keeping a farmer's almanac for several years. And the phase of the moon when she planted.
Yeah.
And whether you agree with that or not, I have no clue. But it was an interesting experiment, and she did it all with a journal.
Sure, sure.
It
It
was
is,
fun.
and it's true that I could look back through this and look at, for example, thinking about climate change, like, do I seriously want to focus in on that a whole lot? I don't know, but I could look back and say, so in October, what kind of notes was I making a couple of years ago? And were my notes that, it feels like summer all the time and it's dry? And of course, obviously there's variability year to year, but yeah, it could be a good way to kind of chronicle what are the years like, what are the seasons like, as we pass along. That's very true. Very true.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah,
You guys, if everyone didn't get a copy of his handouts, why don't you send it an email?
Yeah,
with
I can
the
email them
handouts
to
and
you.
We'll have.
few extra.
Oh, there are some left. Okay.
Yeah, anybody need anything? You got it? Okay.